Practice? We're talking about practice, man. Welcome into the Moss Arts Center here in Blacksburg, Virginia. I'm Robert Bateman, joined alongside Kyle Marshak. And you're probably wondering, why am I quoting AI this early in the morning? Well, it's crossover week here on 3304 Sports Kickoff Show, so Tyronn Lue, watch out, because we're covering everything across the board. We have a full slate of football, men's basketball, and women's basketball loaded up for you today. And Kyle, let's start with the Ally tip-off down in Charlotte, where we saw the number 3 Iowa Hawkeyes take on the number 8 Virginia Tech Hokies last night. Any thoughts on the matchup?
Yeah, well, again, you said the matchup, right? It was number 3 Iowa, number 8 Virginia Tech, but it felt like Caitlin Clark versus Georgia Amoore, and I think that's what the game needs, right? Although Liz Kitley was excellent in that game too, you had 2 really good shooters that makes the game so exciting. And with Beth Mowins on the call, it was just a great scene down in Charlotte for women's basketball overall. And it was a fun one scoring-wise too, right? Caitlin Clark's legend continues to grow. Georgia Amoore, for the first time, put herself in a scene where she seemed to challenge that on a national scale. Of course, the shooting favored Iowa on the end. So Iowa got the advantage, and some foul calls late that made the game very controversial, but I think Iowa had a well-earned win.
Yeah, well-earned for sure. And for more on the Hokies versus the Hawkeyes, we're going to send you over to our very own Cody Wagner.
Offensive juggernaut. That's the best way I could describe this Virginia Tech women's basketball team, who begins their season ranked 8th in the nation. The Hokies showed their offensive firepower in last season's Final Four run and have stepped up their game even further by adding sharpshooting transfer Matilda Eck. Eck played 2 seasons at Michigan State, being an honorable mention for the All-Big Ten team in her sophomore campaign, and she adds to an already dynamic Hokies offense. In her first game in Blacksburg, the former Spartan was impressive, putting up 15 points. She was the second highest scorer, just behind Liz Kitley. And now that I mention her, how about Liz Kitley? Surprisingly, she decided to return to Blacksburg for her senior season rather than leave for the WNBA. And she's been a massive part of this team's success. Against High Point, she scored 27 points while gathering 11 boards. Her, along with Georgia Amoore, led the Hokies to the Final Four last season. Amoore returns as the starting point guard, filling her role well with 14 points and 9 assists in the 94-55 victory over High Point. The Hokies also boast bona fide shooter Kayla King, who put up 14 in the season opener. Following a win at home, Virginia Tech traveled to Charlotte for a marquee matchup with the number 3 ranked Iowa Hawkeyes. Head coach Kenny Brooks had his hands full trying to stop Iowa's Caitlin Clark, who scored 44. The Hokies fought long and hard, but ultimately fell short, losing 80-76. Despite the loss, Georgia Amoore went off, scoring 31 points, including a half quarter to end the first frame. 6'6" Liz Kitley also had a strong showing in Charlotte, having the same amount of rebounds as she had points with 16. With the loss, the women from Blacksburg sit at 1-1. And the greatest question that remains is how their defense will stand up against the elite in college basketball. The offense, however, is electric, and we'll see how far that can carry the Hokies. Guys.
Great stuff, Cody. Well, let's stay in the realm of Charlotte, where we have another pretty highly touted matchup between Virginia Tech and South Carolina. This time, it's a little bit of men's basketball. So, Kyle, we've seen a lot of teams playing these early out-of-conference tournaments where they see teams that they really might only see in the postseason. How do you think these matchups prepare a team for the postseason?
Yeah, it gets earlier and earlier every year, right, where you get these teams facing other Power Fives so early in the non-conference schedule. And I think this is the earliest that we've seen in the Mike Young era for Virginia Tech men's basketball, where they're facing a Power 5 team.
Yeah, game 2 this year.
Exactly. So game 2 on the regular season, obviously they had Coppin State. That was easy. 45-point victory over a non-Power 5 school. But now you have South Carolina. Although South Carolina was 3rd to last in the SEC last year, it's an interesting team because Coach Paris in his 2nd season has brought 4 transfers in, 4 of 7 that he's brought in just 2 seasons. So it's kind of a new Gamecocks team. So it's interesting, right? Although, again, a struggling Power 5 team, so maybe more of a tune-up than we would expect. But Mike Young echoed the same stuff that we saw with Kenny Brooks for women's basketball. It's not fun playing Power 5 teams this early into the season. Obviously, South Carolina is a little bit different than Caitlin Clark and number 3 Iowa, but the same type of thing.
Yeah, it's sure to be a good one. And for more on another big matchup taking place in Charlotte tonight, we'll send you over to Riley Klaus.
November autumn leaves are falling from the trees, and that means basketball is back in Blacksburg. It was just 2 seasons ago when the Virginia Tech men's basketball team upset Duke in the ACC tournament and took home the ACC title. But last year's campaign ended with a first-round loss in the NIT. After starting the season 11-1, the Hokies went through a 7-game losing streak, leading to a 19-15 overall finish. In head coach Mike Young's 5th season in Blacksburg, the team will look to turn a new leaf and return to the March Madness stage this season. The Hokies lost 4 of their top 6 leading scorers from last season, but they dove into the transfer portal to improve the depth of the roster. The team added starting forward Robbie Barron from Northwestern, forward Mekhi Long from Old Dominion, and the Virginia High School League's all-time leading scorer Tyler Nickel from North Carolina. The team will also look to get freshman guards Brandon Recksteiner and Jaden Young involved, while sophomore MJ Collins is expected to step up as he transitions to a starting role this season. These are all fresh faces or players taking on new roles this season, but the team runs through their veteran backcourt featuring Hunter Couture and Sean Padula. Last season, Couture shot 42.4% from 3, while Padula was second on the team in scoring, averaging 15 points a game. Virginia Tech already had an impressive debut to their season with a 100-55 win over Coppin State on Monday. Once they found their groove on offense, the buckets kept coming as every Hokie who entered the game scored. 2 starters achieved double-doubles as Sean Padula scored a team-high 15 points and also earned 10 assists. Center Lynn Kidd had an efficient night as well, scoring 14 points and grabbing 11 rebounds. Hunter Couture was 3 of 5 from behind the arc, and the 2 freshmen combined for 20 points in their debut. Scoring triple digits in their opener was an astonishing feat, but now the Hokies will have a test against South Carolina in the Hall of Fame series in Charlotte on Friday. Coach Young is already focused on this matchup, insisting, "Let's do it Friday," when discussing some of the team's strengths after Monday's win. The Hokies will follow up their matchup with the Gamecocks with a battle against the Campbell Camels in Castle Coliseum. In what could be a very competitive conference in the ACC, Virginia Tech is looking to be right in the mix at the end of the season with their combination of veteran leadership and impactful new additions. Coach Young has never had a losing regular season since taking over at Virginia Tech in 2019 and will continue to attempt to continue the trend this year. Back to you, Rob.
Great stuff, Riley. All right, it's time to get back to your regular schedule programming and talk about some football. The Hokies last week dropped in a rough one to Louisville after really improving their season. So there's a lot of questions still left to be asked about Brent Pry and his squad. But don't worry, Nels Williams has all the answers. Nels, what do you got?
They reached 500 for the first time since week 2. They are riding high on a 3-game winning streak, and a potential upset last week against number 15 Louisville meant if Tech were to win out its ACC games, it would have a guaranteed spot to rematch Florida State and Charlotte and the ACC championship come December. Instead, the wheels didn't just fall off of Virginia Tech's wagon, it got totaled in Kentucky by Louisville. The Hokies couldn't do anything against the Cardinals. They only totaled 140 yards of offense, gave up 231 rushing yards, and 4 touchdowns on the ground defensively. And the only reason Tech's consecutive scoring streak that dates back to 1995 was kept intact was because of a field goal as time expired in the first half. So it looks like on paper, 6-3 Boston College will be yet another daunting task for Brent Pry and company to overcome this week, right? Well, not quite. While yes, the Eagles are 6-3 and eligible to go bowling, there's more to that record than meets the eye. Boston College's opponents and schedule this season is a cakewalk. It's the easiest in the entire country, in fact, per ESPN's Football Power Index. And in their non-conference slate, they did not face a single Power 5 team, yet they still lost to Holy Cross at home and Chestnut Hill in week 2. And while they're riding a 5-game win streak heading into Saturday, their opponents' combined records over that period are 15-30, and their win margins against those teams have been razor slim. 2 of those games have been decided within field goals and 2 within a touchdown. Now, Boston College shouldn't be as difficult of a matchup as Louisville was last week for the Hokies, but Tech needs to do what it's struggled the most with since Brent Pry became head coach: win on the road. Since Pry took over last year, they're 1-9 away from Lane Stadium, with their only win coming against Liberty in Lynchburg last season. And this year, they've looked night and day at home versus on the road, as the Hokies are averaging double the amount of turnovers committed and half as many passing yards thrown in the air. So what does Tech need to do to come out on top in Chestnut Hill? Well, you've heard me say it on this show before. Just run the dang ball. Boston College ranks 100th nationally in stopping the run and gives up roughly 5 yards per carry and 170 yards per game to opposing running backs. That's music to Bashaw Tootin and Virginia Tech's rushing attack's ears, who are averaging 8 fewer yards on the road than they are at home. The Hokies have the opportunity to right the ship on the road and move one game closer to being bowl eligible for the first time under Brent Pry. But Virginia Tech can also do to Boston College what Louisville did to them last week: bring them back to reality. Guys.
Thanks, Nels. Well, the Boston College Eagles have made incredible improvements to their team this year, it's safe to say. They're 6-3, whereas last year they were 3-9. Kyle, funny enough, we saw this matchup last year, and the Hokies won 27-10 here in Lane Stadium. So what improvements have Boston College made to their roster, and how are they going to bring that back home and try and defend their home stadium?
Well, the thing that they struggled with most was their offense. I mean, they really struggled last year. It was a reason why it was a low-scoring affair versus Virginia Tech, whose offense was also below par in the ACC play early in 2022, right, in the first season of the Brent Pry era. This year, I hate to be that guy, but it's the quarterback. Thomas Castellanos is special. 1,700 yards in the air right now, probably third in those rankings for ACC Player of the Year, and on top of that, pretty special on the ground too. So I hate to be that guy, be one-dimensional and say, oh, it's the quarterback who's transformed the team, but I really think that's the truth here.
Yeah, well, Castellanos is surely that guy, and the Eagles are definitely flying high. For more on Boston College, we'll send you over to Sophie Terrible.
We have a bird brawl on our hands as the Hokies swoop down to the Eagles' nest of Chestnut Hill to face their opponent, Boston College, this weekend. Saturday, November 11th in Alumni Stadium, the Virginia Tech Hokies will be playing Boston College Eagles. Last time Tech played Boston College was over a year ago on September 10th, 2022, resulting in an impressive win for the Hokies, 27-10. That evening, Lane Stadium held great confidence, and the Hokies played that on the field. Let's take a look at the highlights of that game. Grant Wells threw for 140 yards, leading their offense to have a touchdown for the first 3 quarters with no stopping. Touchdowns made by Armani Chapman and Caleb Smith put the Hokies to a great lead. Aside from the offense, the defense on the field by the Hokies was also one to admire, having a total of 6 sacks on BC's quarterback, Phil Dracovic. Hopefully the Hokies' confidence remains this weekend and they can bring home another win, but a lot can change in just a year. Let's see what they're facing this weekend. Boston College stands at a 3-2 record in the ACC with an overall record of 6-3, with their losses being to Northern Illinois, Florida State, and Louisville. Boston College has shown some resilience this season. While facing tough competition like Florida State and Louisville, BC keeps their scores close, putting up a great fight, only losing to the Seminoles 31-29, where they fought hard and ended in an impressive score compared to other teams in the ACC. The Eagles also managed to score against Louisville, resulting in a 56-28 loss, but still showing that their offense can face a challenge. Their team leaders include quarterback Thomas Castellanos with over 1,700 passing yards and 760 rushing yards, and their wide receiver Lewis Bond with 485 receiving yards. Although it seems like great traits so far, there's always a fatal flaw. Boston College tends to lack confidence in the beginning of their games, needing to take a couple drives on offense to finally settle in. And at that point, it is usually by halftime. Inconsistency tends to be a common streak with Boston College, with most of their plays resulting in later minutes of the game. It seems to be either a strong start and a bad finish, or a bad start and a strong finish, but that won't cut it in the long run. Virginia Tech and Boston College share similarities with their stamina on the field. With these common traits and same conference record, not only will both teams be competing for a higher conference rank, but competing for a potential bowl game in the future. It will be a close fight in the Eagles' nest this Saturday. May the best bird win.
Great stuff as always, Sophie. Well, Kyle, it's time for me to bring back my personal favorite segment that we do here, color swaps.
Yep.
Because, you know, usually we do a little pick 'em, but I like colors. What can I say? So let's start it off with the matchup we just talked about. We got BC versus VT. Which one you like?
Okay. You know what? I think BC is the more intricate logo here, and maybe I'm a sucker for that Chicago maroon, but I like that Boston College logo.
See, I'd have to agree with you there. I think the orange and maroon eagle just looks dope. So I'm going with BC
I can mess
too.
with that.
All right, we agree on that one. Now, this game, when we sat down and picked games, We talked about it. You wanted to do Tulane versus Tulsa. I didn't know why, but here it is right here.
Well, first of all, you have a ranked team in here, right? Tulsa or Tulane, excuse me, number
Yep,
20
number
in the
22.
country. But in this case, I'm not going to go with the skill of the team. I'm going to go with the color of the logo here. And Tulsa with that Tulane green, I can mess with that.
See, I'm going to have to oppose you here. Normally, I would go with that Tulsa logo. I like the added color, the white, the blue. It really pops. But that red and blue combo right here for Tulane, it takes the cake for me. So we'll split the difference there.
Okay.
Let's keep it moving in some football, where we got number 13 facing number 5 Washington.
Man, well, first of all, Washington outside of the top 4 right now is a travesty.
Yeah.
Washington without their pinnacle purple right there,
Yeah.
also a travesty. I'm going to take Utah on that one.
I like the Utah too. I think that I don't know how well it shows on the monitor, but that gold right there with the purple,
Yeah.
absolutely wonderful.
Looks good in
my
person, I
opinion.
can tell you that.
All right, now we're going to switch it up, go to a little bit of women's hoop, and we got that first matchup we talked about. We got the number 3 Hawkeyes versus the number 8 Virginia Tech
That's
Hokies.
right. You and I talked about that last night. I know you like that gold from the Hawkeyes, but again, that Chicago maroon looks good in a more designed logo like this.
See, I like the simplicity here. You got that black and yellow, gives me Wiz Khalifa vibes. So give me Virginia Tech on
can
this
live
one.
with that.
All right, we'll stick with some women's hoops. We got number 11 Tennessee versus number 18 FSU. This one gives me a laugh.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, that one looks great. Let's check out the Tennessee logo.
Yeah, we've talked about this before, right? Because we had that Florida State matchup last time we did this color swap, and Florida State again with a Chicago maroon, more intricate logo. But I don't know about that Texas orange, right? Or that Tennessee orange. I don't know. It feels wrong for something not Knoxville to have that same color. I got to take that Florida State maroon.
It's literally just a plain T, dude. Give me Florida State.
right, all right.
This feels so plain to me. Like this, it's all right. The orange makes it pop.
But you just said simplicity.
Yeah,
gets the job done.
simplicity, but like there's got to be some flavor in it. Like
Okay.
I like a little bit of seasoning in my food.
Okay.
All right, let's go over to the men's basketball realm where we got Virginia Tech versus South Carolina.
Oh, man. You know what I'm going to say here, man. South Carolina, the Gamecocks logo in a Chicago maroon. Give me that every day of the week.
Something about you and Chicago Maroon
can I
this
say?
morning, but I'm gonna have to agree with you there. I think the Gamecock just looks good no matter
Yeah.
what color it is.
Got to go with that.
All right, and our last matchup, it's going to be number 12 Arizona versus number 2 Duke men's basketball.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
See, that's an interesting matchup, right? Because you've got a pretty telltale logo, right? You
Yeah.
see that Arizona A, you recognize it any day of the week. But when
Yeah.
you switch the colors out, it just looks like a high school from, I don't know, upstate Seattle or somewhere in
Somewhere
the
around there,
Pacific
yeah.
Northwest. So I got to take that Blue Devil over here.
I
Although
like
I
that
guess
gives
it's kind
you
of a Red
Pacific-
Devil.
Yeah, see, I was liking the Red Devil. That's
Yeah?
what I was going to call it. How did you get Pacific Northwest for this logo?
It's just the feel.
Yeah, you're just feeling
you just had to be
Seattle,
there.
Washington
You just had
area.
to be there.
All right, well, I'm going to agree with you there. Give me the Duke Red Devils, I guess, in this situation. So that's all we got for you this week on the 3304 Kickoff Show. Once again, a big thank you to all our reporters, Cody Wagner, Riley Klaus, Nels Williams, and Sophie Tarabola. For Kyle Marshak, I'm Robert Bateman saying so long for now, and we'll catch you next week.